Nikki, thank you very much for being here, for the time that you gave us for this short interview. And you have written many articles and book chapters about qualitative research, and some of them on writing differently, otherwise. Can you say something about how you encounter, how you develop writing differently? Or writing otherwise. I don't know what you prefer, but anyway. So,
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think if I think back to when I started writing differently, it was probably when they became part of the CG Collective. So
what is
thinking
the collective?
CG Collective, that's us, Angelo. So before then, everything was really normal. I would write normal papers. My thesis was very straightforward, introduction, lit review, methodology, and so on and so forth. Um, But I think there was something about meeting the collective and starting to think about the way knowledge was produced differently through more creative and more innovative and theorized ways. That's actually made me think about ways to write differently, because if you are using these more creative methodologies, writing a straight paper doesn't feel right anymore. It doesn't feel like it fits. And I'd read Laurel Richardson's chapter, Writing as a Method of Inquiry, and I found that really interesting as well, and how that was trying to promote thinking and writing in more creative and nuanced ways. So I think that was probably my starting point as to why I decided to do that.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us what writing differently implies for you?
Mhm, mhm. I
And
think for
perhaps
me,
an example of your work, of
yeah,
your.
definitely. I'm actually doing it in the book I'm writing at the moment. I'm trying to what writing otherwise or writing differently does for me is it allows me the permission to experiment with the way I might set out particular articles or chapters, the way I might try and work with the materialist theories I work with, that doesn't justice isn't the right word, but allows me to try and put on the page what I'm thinking and seeing. So what that means is that I might write a normal paragraph, then I might introduce images or poetry, or maybe shift the text to the other side of the page. So the writing almost becomes disruptive or disrupted. And thinking with some of the post theories I've been working with, they're trying to push us to think about the ways to create knowledge differently. For me, writing otherwise is a way for me to try and materialize the way I think differently about research or about knowledge or about trying to find new ways to articulate what
Mhm.
I'm seeing in the research. So it just offers me a provocation to be different and to connect the theory to my writing, to my research, and to get it down on paper.
Mm.
Um,
What kind of theory are you thinking about when you say theory?
yeah, I've been particularly focused on more post-humanist and materialist theory for many years. And I've been in the writing of my book, I'm working predominantly with feminist materialist theory, so trying to sort of connect feminism with materialities that are happening in places and spaces, and um, looking at those creative, relational, and productive ways to work with data and to connect theory to data.
Mhm.
Um, I think any sort of post theory, so post-structuralism, post-humanism, post whatever, can you can write otherwise in those ways. That immanent way of writing, which is very open and creative, and you don't really know where it's going until you get there, and then you still don't really know where it's gone. So there's something quite exciting about that.
Yes, now I'm very curious to read your book. So
Ah, yes.
let's go for it.
Thank
Uh,
you.
why do you think is important for qualitative research to write differently? Why do you think is important within the landscape of qualitative research, writing differently is important?
Yeah. I can't help thinking that some of it is about pushing some of the boundaries to move beyond so-called accepted forms of producing articles or books. Um, and I know there's been a tension for qualitative inquiry or for students or scholars working with qualitative research to search for some sort of authenticity, some acceptance from communities that say, oh, it's a small scale project, or how can you generalize? I mean, that's not what the work I do does, but I think there's something about pushing beyond where we are now because theory is taking us in different directions, and because we're trying to find innovative solutions or innovative responses to some of the things that are happening in education, in social studies, in environmental education. I think that there calls for a different way to think about research and to develop research practices. Actually takes you away from some of these accepted ways of knowing and thinking and being. And for me, the writing otherwise is about that creation of concepts, creation of new ideas that try and push back against standardized norms, because we've been doing it for a while and everything needs to evolve. And this for me is the next evolution of the way that I write and think. And I've seen it becoming more common with other scholars who are working with some of these post theories like posthumanism and materialism. But I also think there is no recipe for one way to write otherwise. So we as individuals or collectives can be creative together and can actually push beyond this idea of the normal way to write a paper. We could have 10 different ways to write a paper, equally as valid, equally as exciting, also equally as innovative, and getting people to think. I keep saying think differently, but to try and move beyond some of the accepted ways of thinking, because we've been doing that for a while and the problems that we have globally, societally, hasn't gone away. So we need to think of new ways to try and address these.
So basically, if you have to give an advice to a student that developing their writing up, in which direction you suggest for her, for him? So how would you advise a junior researcher interested in developing the writing up?
I would probably say first thing would be to start to read other people's work or to look at what other people have been doing. There is a growing body of scholarship now that is writing differently in many different ways and forms. Journals like Qualitative Inquiry and Cultural Studies Critical Methodologies are doing that work. There are other journals as well that are engaging in more creative ways. Maybe to draw on some of the transdisciplinary approaches, so look at art practices or look at organizational studies and the different ways scholars are writing there. And then I think I would probably just say to scholars who are developing this route, just experiment, have fun, do something different, see where it takes you, follow the pathway. And don't be scared. Don't think you've got to pull yourself back in. Just be really open and experimental. There's no right or wrong way. Just have fun with it. Maybe find a collective or other scholars who are writing in the same way that you can get some support and some guidance and a reminder that this is not crazy. This is just different. So I think it's just about immerse yourself in the literature, play with it, think about it, write differently, and just see where it takes you.